Petros, the dark horse of the Shimmer balance changes. He didn't get a lot of buffs. All they did was change his S1 and S3 to guaranteed crits. He also got his base stat boosted, and most importantly, his rival rune content got a better distribution for HP rolls. So they basically ironed out all of the crit rate rolls and also accuracy rolls as well and gave it to HP. But also the new rival rune that he has right now has less crit damage. I think it's about 40% less than the old one, but he has like twice more HP. Now if you're wondering why I got him at R3, when he came out I instantly summoned for his R1 because I thought his R1 is going to be broken. It turned out he's not broken, and then I pulled his R2 from gold record, and then recently, yesterday, I pulled his R3 because I thought I was doing divinate summons, but instead I was doing Shimmer records, so I wasted my Shimmer PT on Petros R3. I lost like 40 Shimmer records, but I did redeem myself by pulling an Unas right after that, like the very next multi, so that's fine. Him having more HP in rival rune content is very relevant because of his passive. The more HP he has over the enemy, the more damage reduction you have, and he's also able to nullify the effects of the enemy that is lower HP than him. And also having more HP means he's going to do more damage with his irascible buff, which is based off of the enemy's max HP and also his. So on paper, his new stats makes him look absolutely busted. He has 50% damage reduction. He's pretty much immune to every single unit in the game because I think he has the highest HP in the game right now in rival rune content, only second to Amir if I'm not mistaken. And his damage does HP scaling, so he should be really good, right? Unfortunately, even with the buff, he kinda sucks. Even with the buff, Petros does not have a strong enough S3 and S1 to make his passive work. You need to drop the enemy below 50% HP for him to go into this irascible mode, but if you run him as the sole DPS, you will not be able to reduce the enemy's HP to 50% or below because he does absolutely zero damage without his irascible buff. I'm only going to show you this team once because this is not the way you're going to run Petros, but this is just to show you that Petros, even with the buff, will not be able to solo carry as the DPS. So I'm fighting against a Wuyu team and I'm going to lose. It's taking forever though because they can't kill me. But I'm gonna lose. Yeah, there we go. He did 200,000. Sakura did more damage. Oh my god. I remember the first time I did showcase on Petros and supports did more damage than him. Alright, so again, the main problem with Petros, if you want to run him as the sole DPS, is he does no damage before he gets the irascible buff, right? And the only way that you can get the irascible buff is when you drop the enemies below 50% HP. So he got the irascible buff right here. And maybe Ggez is gonna die, but once Ggez dies, I can't really drop the enemy's HP below 50% because he does no damage even with the irascible buff against defense scaling units because he is a HP scaling unit. So units like Wuyu, even Suizai, that has a lot of defense, he will not do any damage against them. Without the irascible buff, I'm not doing any damage to them. And since I'm running 4 supports, they also cannot drop the enemies below 50% HP, right? So at this point, it's pretty much impossible for me to get the irascible buff unless the healing reduction kicks in. Alright, so Donar is about to get below 50%. He goes into irascible mode. He kills off Donar, and then at this point, it's going to be really tough. I'm not life stealing anymore because the healing is reduced. And the other thing that you should know is that when Petros is below the enemy's HP, current HP, he will no longer nullify the effects of the enemy. So it doesn't take the max HP, but instead it takes the current HP. So for example, if you have 70,000 current HP with your Petros and the enemy has 50,000, you will nullify their effects. But if you drop below like 49,000 and the enemy has 50,000, you will no longer nullify them. So that's out of the question. You cannot run Petros as a single DPS because it's really tough for him alone to drop the enemy below 50% HP, which means you need to run him with another DPS. But if I run this type of team, he's not going to be the main carry, and instead it's going to be Ggez and also Moriyama, right? So for now, I'm just going to remove Moriyama and we'll see his damage as opposed to Ggez. And he did 19,000 damage. Amazing. This is reminiscent from the first showcase that I did with him. He was doing similar numbers back then. But I guess this buff is not really to help him do more damage. It's mostly just to make him survive longer and counter units like Ggez or Mavis, right? Or Ollie and stuff like that. He's only there to exist in the battlefield and negate those effects. Alright, here's another team I'm gonna try. I have another DPS, which is Sloan. And also Sloan's AoE can maybe kill off Yuhime without triggering Ggez's cheat death mechanic. And we will compare his damage to Sloan. And we lost. He didn't do much, 66,000. Alright, so for Petros passive, the way his damage reduction works, you will always have this 25% damage reduction, and with every 1000 HP higher you have on the enemy, you will reduce it further by 5%, maximum 50%. So you only need 5000 HP above the enemy. With the adjustment on his rival rune, it makes it easier to get this 50% damage reduction, but you can also stack it up with Sakura and also Lian as well, or Everett if you want to. So you get 50% from his passive, and then you get 25%, but that 25% is not additional, it is multiplicative to the 50%. And then if you run Sally as well, Sally will give you 25% additional to the Sakura one, so you get a 75% total damage reduction. So he's gonna be the last one alive, but my entire team is completely wiped because I don't have Zihi. And when he's alone without the irascible buff, he just completely dies. He doesn't do damage, he doesn't lifesteal anymore. And that's the biggest issue with Petros, right? He relies too much on this irascible buff. Without it, you don't have the counter attack chance. You have to rely on Avatara, and you also don't do the pursuit attack that heals you up. Alright, let me show you how Petros damage reduction works. Right now I have lower HP than this guy right here. And when I take damage, I take 75% of the damage, so 9296, because he initially has 25% damage reduction. Now if I were to add these two pieces to Petros, he will now have more HP than this guy, at least 5000 more HP. This will then give him 50% damage reduction. There we go, 6197. And now if I were to run Sakura and Sally in the same team, he can get up to 75% damage reduction. So the way this works is you get 25% damage reduction from Sakura, and then Sally will add another 25% damage reduction to Sakura. So instead of having 50% plus 50% from these two, it's actually 50% and then times 50% from these two. So in total you get 75% damage reduction. Alright, this guy did 6197 to Petros when he had his passive damage reduction alone, which is 50%. And now with Sally and Sakura in the team giving additional 50% damage reduction, it should do 3099 to Petros. And there we go, 3099. So in total you have 75% damage reduction on Petros, which is the maximum damage reduction you can get on him. And one of the other reasons that he cannot be the main DPS of the team is because of Zihi. His damage is mostly from the pursuit attacks, and if the enemy has a Zihi, your pursuit attacks will do 70% less damage. So you pretty much cannot do any damage with Petros. Alright, last ticket. I don't even know if this team is gonna work. I have no healer, he has no healer, but he has Ggez on the Spirit Aegis, and also I'm running Lu Shang as well, just to give him more damage, because he's going to outlast the rest of my team. And one more thing about Petros is that he can crit through the Spirit Aegis buff, so you don't need to run a Everett right here, because his S3 and S1 are guaranteed to land a critical hit, and the irascible buff will always crit as well. Alright, let's see. Again, you cannot run him as the sole DPS, and we lost. Alright, he did 100,000 damage. Yeah. Even with the buff, he's not that good, man. You're gonna run him in the same scenario you were running him before the buff, like against Ggez, against Mavis, against Ollie, but don't expect him to do the carrying at all, because he won't. Alright, we killed off... Oh, we didn't kill off Zihi. Yeah, as you can see, because he has higher HP than Zihi, he wasn't stunned or wasn't petrified by Zihi. And even still, yeah, he doesn't do enough damage, man. Now he has less crit damage as well, and he's out of the irascible mode. And yeah, 2 hits from Ggez just took him out, man. Even with all of the damage reduction that he has, he should have 50% damage reduction, and he still just got 2-shotted by Ggez. But yeah, that's about it for Petros. I know I only have him at D1, but even at D6, it's not really going to change much. You still won't be able to run him as a sole DPS, because he cannot solo carry. And the scenarios that you're going to be using him in is always going to be the same. It's either against a Ggez, against a Mavis, or an Ollie. Outside of those 3 scenarios, you're better off just running anything else other than Petros. So moral of the story, if you have a Petros, do not go for his Resonance and Divinates. He's just there to exist and just counter units that have death immunity. That's pretty much his job, nothing else. The buff allows him to survive a little bit longer, but it doesn't change the result of the match if all of your allies are dead except for Petros, because he alone cannot turn the tide of the battle. One way they can make Petros better is by switching this Astral set to Ocean set to give him 100% uptime on the Irascible buff. But even still, he's not going to be that good because he doesn't do enough damage. So yeah, that's about it. Again, this guy still sucks. Ciao.